Okay, it's 7 o'clock, we'll get started. Hello, everybody. Meeting of the Finance Committee is being held today, December 7th, 2022, at 7 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber. Excuse me. Sorry, Alderman GOV, could you please call the roll?
Of course. Mayor Donchis.
He is not here today.
Alderman Clay.
I am here.
Alderman Camo. Alderman Govea is here. Alderman Clemens.
Here.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Here.
Alderman Moran.
Okay, and that is 4 in attendance, and we have quorum. Thank you, Alderman O'Brien, for going
My
to
pleasure.
pinch hit if necessary. Also in attendance is the Treasury Management Officer, Cheryl Linder, Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Deb Chisholm, Sustainability Manager, Dave Boucher, Superintendent of Wastewater, Dan Hudson, Engineering, Brian Conant, Superintendent of Parks and Rec, Chief Steve Buxton, Jeremy Audette, if I have that properly, and Director Matt Sullivan. I think I have everybody. Okay, is there anybody here for public comment? Seeing none, communications.
Communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager. Contract for operation and maintenance of hydroelectric project in the amount of approximately $476,000 per year, funded from 54290 Dam Operating and Maintenance Service / General Fund.
I think, if I'm correct, Ms. Chisholm and Director Sullivan are here. Did you want to have a seat, or?
We'd be happy to, yes.
Please, by all means.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Matt Sullivan, Community Development Division Director, joined by Deb Chisholm, the city's Sustainability Manager and former Waterways Manager responsible for the hydroelectric operations, budget, and capital projects. We're here on behalf of a request this evening for a 3-year extension of our existing contracted services agreement with Essex Power, who are responsible for maintenance, operations, and limited consulting services related to the city's 2 hydroelectric dams that I've actually spoken recently to the Board of Aldermen through a separate capital request about, but they provide our day-to-day operational support to those 2 facilities and really the subject matter expertise to ensuring that they operate effective and efficiently long into the future. Before you, as part of this 3-year extension agreement until December 31st of 2025, is a contract that is fundamentally identical to the prior agreement with Essex Hydropower, with really 3 general or maybe more broad modifications to the contract I wanted to review before taking questions. The first being that based on rises in prices on a time and materials basis, there is an increase to the hourly rates presented within the contract, both for the day-to-day operational services and also for the consulting services. On top of that, there's a modification to the structure of the administrative fee that's charged by Essex, and that administrative fee is charged on a per revenue basis. So depending upon how much revenue we actually collect through the facilities, Essex receives an administrative fee payment out of that. The change being that in the past, it was a scaled administrative fee based on either 10% of our revenues or 20% of our revenues, depending upon how much power we generated. The modification is actually to change that to a flat 15% of revenue moving forward. So that modification is the second modification. The third is that the minimum administrative fee as part of this contract is $130,000 that would be paid to Essex. And again, that's a minimum on the basis of the 15% that's being modified within the contract. It could exceed that if the city in fact collects more revenue as part of the hydroelectric or from the hydroelectric dams. And then lastly, I would just point out briefly that while this contract request is independent of the recent capital request or additional capital request we've made for the Jackson Falls turbine replacement and the relicensing of the Mine Falls facility, Essex does play an integral role in ensuring not only that those facilities continue to operate properly, but on an as-needed basis, they actually provide some level of expertise and support to those capital projects because they have an intimate understanding of how those facilities operate. And additionally, the contract actually contemplates that on an as-needed basis, they provide consulting services to those capital projects as well if needed. I'm happy to answer any questions, and certainly Deb, who has a more intimate understanding of the operations of the facilities, is happy to answer any questions that you might have, but we would appreciate your support of this contract extension before you this evening.
I have a few questions, but before, are there any members with questions? Okay, my questions are very, very benign. The increase, it makes sense that there would be an increase with the cost of inflation and so on going on. And I noticed that the last paragraph actually talks about a potential decrease in the fee. Is that correct? Did I understand that? The minimum said it could be decreased on a 12-month Northeast CPI from the prior year. Is that correct? So if the CPI actually goes down, there would be a decrease in that fee?
That is correct. If the CPI does in fact decrease, the contract will be adjusted on an annual basis to reflect that 12-month CPI. So if the CPI decreases, the hourly rates would be would be changed to reflect that.
Okay. And then my other question was, and I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, what is the overall contract increase dollar-wise? Do we know what that is from the previous year?
The answer is no, but I'm going to ask Deb to comment a little bit on why that is, if that's okay.
This is Deb Chisholm speaking. There's some flexibility when it comes to paying Essex, not only for their time and materials, they also may engage a third-party vendor, divers, crane operators, and that comes with the territory of repairs that might be needed. But in addition, when we're talking about power generation, the power generation can be all over the place based on the rainfall or the snowfall that's happening. And so when Amy first asked me relative to the letter that was going to be provided in the packet tonight, what's the amount? We used that 470 as sort of the average of the last few years that we've paid them.
Okay, that's fine by me. Are there any other questions? If not, let's go to the vote. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No, and that motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Mr. Clerk? Yes.
Communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager. I will move to approve change order 1 to the contract with Doobie's General Contracting for the door upgrade project in an amount not to exceed $23,832. Funding will be through Department 169 Wastewater Fund, Wastewater Account 81 Capital Improvements.
And we have Mr. Boucher on Zoom.
Thank you. Dave Boucher, wastewater superintendent. We have several doors at the wastewater facility. They're in interior, exterior, industrial doors, and some frames that need repair or replacement due to age and the environment that they sit in because they house chemical pumps. Doobie's General Contracting had repaired a batch of doors for us, satisfactory work. So we'd like to have them continue with another batch of doors that are in disrepair that we'd like them to fix. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? It all makes sense, and I just wanted clarification. I believe that the original $18,000 contract didn't come here because it was below the $25,000, but adding this $23,832 brings the total of this contract up to $42,324, and therefore it had to come to the Finance Committee. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and this motion carries. Mr. Clerk? Thank
Next
you, Mr. Boucher.
communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager. I will move to improve the engineering contract for the West Hollis Street corridor study with Holy Tanner and Associates, Inc. of Manchester, New Hampshire, in an amount of $188,772. Funding will be through Department Engineering Fund 53107, Architect and Engineering Services / ARPA funding.
And again, Mr. Hudson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My internet's a little choppy. I'm hoping you can hear me okay, but this is a corridor study for the West Hall Street corridors. We've done it a couple of times. The corridors can, kind of a congested corridor. There's been some issues on the corridor with access and with pedestrian safety and those sorts of things. So we're seeking to engage Hoyle Tanner to complete this study. This is being funded through the ARPA funds. We did take this to Board of Public Works back in June and they approved it. But we've had to wait until the ARPA funding plan was approved before we could bring it to finance. So be happy to ask any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? I just want to make a comment that for those that are listening, this is extraordinarily important. In November of 2019, there was a fatality within this corridor, and the final BPW approval of this was on November 17, 2022. So it has their blessing, and I think it's something that we should put through. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? And there are none. So this motion carries. Mr. Clerk?
Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager. I will move to approve the purchase of a 2020 Toro Workman HDX in the amount of $41,676.57. That is subject to change. Funding will be through Department 177, Parks and Recreation Fund 81300, Machinery and Equipment / General Fund.
Mr. Conant?
Hi, Brian Conant, Superintendent of Park and Rec. Currently, right now, we have a 2006 Toro Workman at Holman Stadium. We use this for a lot of different tasks that we do at the stadium. This isn't your typical golf cart. This can carry a capacity of 3,300 pounds. We use it for bringing in different infield conditioners, topsoil throughout the season, warning track material. I plan on taking the 2006 and using it at Greeley to help do some of the tasks we do there on a daily basis. I'd be happy to answer any questions about this.
Are there any questions?
Thank you, Madam
Alderwoman
Chair. I
Clement?
just have to ask one question. What model is this? Is that the 3300D? Or what is it? The model?
It's the Workman HDX.
Mm-hmm.
That's the model.
Is there a number behind that? Like, I looked them up and I don't know which model it is. It's not just a Toro Workman HDX. HDX what?
7387, I believe. It's on the quote.
Okay.
Alderman Gouvet?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. So the price tag is $41,676.57. It says that's subject to change. Do we anticipate a price change on that?
No, in talking to the vendor, I don't anticipate a price change on that. Recently there was a 4% increase on the items in front of the Finance Committee tonight, that would compare to what was put in front of the Board and Public Commissioners. And in talking to the vendor, I don't see an increase. Fortunately, the company that we're buying this from is a distributor, Turf Products Corporation. The manufacturer Toro has a plant out in Minnesota. The prices did increase by 4% from the time it's gone from them to you. I do not see an increase in price now as it sits in front of you.
Just a quick follow-up. If I can, I see that it is the same for the two next communications we have. Just, do you anticipate the same answer for those two as well?
Yes, absolutely.
And I just have one question. You did say that 4% from when it hit Public Works, because our letters do have a different number, and that is the 4% increase, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Alderman
Alderman
Clemmons,
Clegg.
yes.
Yeah, so my question is related to that too, because I'm looking at these letters and some of them are, well, this one's October 12th, but some of them are date back to September. And I'm wondering why it took so long to get here and when did that price increase go into effect?
It happened actually 2 days prior to us being able to cut the purchase order, these pieces of equipment, which is unfortunate. I think what what you have to consider is that with the pandemic, manufacturers were shut down, assembly lines were shut down. And now these same companies, no matter what we're talking about, whether it's, this company with the equipment we're trying to buy or a vehicle, truck, you're seeing this because they can't get people to actually work in the assembly lines. So it's not like it used to be where we would cut a PO and the piece of equipment would be already made, ready to go. Unfortunately, this is what I've come to learn.
So, just to
Sure,
follow up.
absolutely.
Yeah, so no, I guess my question was more along the lines of, did this get bogged down somewhere in the process between going to, what was it, the Board of Public Works before it got here, or like, is this the fault of, is this our own making that we're paying 4% because of the process, or? You can be honest, I mean, just say yes, if that's the case, I mean.
Can I? Yes.
Okay, no, I wanted to know that because it matters, because that, and it's not your fault,
No.
but the fact that, I wish we could streamline this stuff. I mean, it's December, you cut these POs in September and October. To me, we need to speed along the process. I don't know where it got bogged down in the line, but it should have come to us a long time ago.
I
So,
completely agree.
I mean, I'm gonna support all of these, don't get me wrong, they're important, it's important
you.
equipment, but,
Thank you.
yeah.
And, one moment. And I absolutely agree with you, Alderman Clemmons. As I looked at it, I see price change from every single one that we're looking at here. And it is no fault of Mr. Conant.
No.
It's the administrative issue of going from committee to committee. We need to be able to streamline this, especially now where things are so volatile. So
Right.
I do think that we need to be able to work on that. And I blame no one particular person, especially city employee, but we have to work better in our groups.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I couldn't agree more with Alderman Clemmons. I think it's a shame that the taxpayers have to suffer for our own bureaucracy of getting stuff done. And I think this is pretty eye-opening on 3 items that are all decently expensive, that we should streamline the process more to make sure it's not taking months on months on months to the point where there's price increases because we're taking so long. So I think that is absolutely something we should look into.
Perhaps especially something maybe so volatile, we're doing more and more joint meetings such as infrastructure and public works and so on. So maybe when certain things like this come up, we should ask to have some kind of joint meeting, especially when we know that something like this. Mr. Conant, did you, again, please be as honest as possible. Were you aware that there was a potential of this happening? Do you think there's something we could have done to curtail this from happening?
No, unfortunately, no, I didn't foresee this coming. I don't really think there's anything we could have done. I understand there, within the municipality, we have checks and balances, and I understand that. Could we find a way to, speed things up? Possibly. I don't really feel comfortable commenting on it, so.
And we don't mean to put you in that position, so I
Thank you.
apologize for that, so.
Thank you.
Are there any other more questions?
I do have one other question. I don't want to be naive to this, but is this equipment new or is it old? Like 2019, 2020? What are we looking
This-
at? Why we're paying 41,000? I wanna know if it's a brand new or what? Or is it
Yes.
used?
Alderman Timmons, this equipment would be brand new
Okay.
when we receive it.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
And those opposed? Okay, Mr. Clerk?
Next, communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, and I will move to approve the purchase of a 2022 Toro VersaVac in the amount of $39,811.17, subject to change. Funding will be through Department 177, Parks and Recreation, Fund 81300, Machinery and Equipment / General Fund.
Mr. Conan again?
Yes, this is a piece of equipment we use heavily in the fall for leaf debris cleanup. It has a capacity of 6.5 cubic yards. We usually, we currently right now, we have a 2003 version of, it's almost 20 years old. I think the piece of equipment, just based off of what we have, speaks for itself. Not too many items would last 20 years. And we use this, we usually corral leaves into a row and use this to set them up. Integral part of our fall cleanup. Can't say enough about this piece of machinery.
Okay, thank you. And I do see that there's a price difference again on this one. It doesn't look like it's quite 4%. It looks like it went from $39,016 to $39,811. So it's a small increase, but it is an increase. And I see that it's a 2022 Toro Versa, so it's a new one as well. Are there any
Yes.
other questions? I just have one other one. What do we do with the old equipment? Do we use it for parts? Do we salvage it? Do we do a trade-in of some sort, or?
The piece of machinery that we're gonna replace was actually out currently today, being utilized. We're gonna continue to use it. I think we could utilize two. It's just gonna make our operation more efficient, to be honest with you.
Great,
So we'll use it until we can't, till it's no longer salvageable.
great. Thank you so much for that dedication. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed? And that motion carries. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you. Next, communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager. I will move to approve the purchase of a 2022 Toro Pro Core 648 in the amount of $38,943.53, subject to change. Funding will be through Department 177 Parks and Recreation, Fund 81300, Machinery and Equipment / General Fund.
Mr. Conant, that one's it. You're on the hot seat again.
Thank you. Brian Conant, Superintendent of Parks and Rec. Really excited about this piece of equipment. It's a great air fryer. It's going to replace a 1989 air fryer that we have. We're going to utilize this a lot at Holman Stadium, and we're going to utilize this around the goal mouse, around a lot of soccer fields, lacrosse fields. It's going to be a great tool in our arsenal, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about this.
Well, I applaud the city for keeping a 1989 one going. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but thank you very much. Are there any
welcome.
questions? Again, this, just for the record, this is a 2022, and there is an additional price increase on that one due to conversations that we've already had. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
And those opposed? Thank you very much, Mr. Conant. And Alderman GOV?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next communication, Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager. I will move to approve change order number 1 to the contract for the purchase and installation of a central irrigation system with Corbett Incorporated in the amount of $27,925. Funding will be through Department 177, Parks and Recreation, Fund 54210, Construction Services / General Fund.
Thank you. Mr. Conant, I think that might be your last one. Is that true?
I believe so. Okay. Brian Conant, Superintendent of Parks and Rec. Currently, right now, we have 14 parks that have this capability. This particular park has 4 soccer fields. Earlier in the year, we spent about $88,000 to get the 14 parks up online with this capability. This particular park is going to cost a little bit more money because there's some wire that needs to be relocated to the different fields. What's there currently isn't going to handle what we need to do. It's a great tool because I and staff can access this through a desktop, through our iPhone, and instead of having to travel to the location to turn it off in case of a weather event, you never want to irrigate when you have natural rainfall. We can do this from our desktop or our iPad, which makes it extremely convenient. I can't say enough about this tool. It's saving us water, it's saving us money on labor, which I think is extremely important. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on this.
Are there any questions on this? No, I absolutely agree. I think that anything that you can run from your desktop, you don't have to go chasing after. The only question that I did have is, I know I have a home irrigation system that has a water sensor that if it rains, it shuts off, but it doesn't usually work. I have to do it anyways. Does this have a hydro sensor or water sensor for rain, or is this, you just have to know?
So ultimately, you can put shutoffs in based off your water location. We could put in Nashua, and computer software would monitor the weather in Nashua and shut it off for us. Or, we can do it. Currently, right now, this would be the 15th park online. There would be about another 30 irrigation sites that are small. We could have, talking about the triangle up on past the Hunt building, which currently right now would be operated by their sensor. The only problem with those things I see is that, you have to change the batteries in them. In a lot of locations, we actually don't have electricity to them. It's all, battery operated. And, sometimes we run into a case of vandalism with those. So I do like the fact that this particular software and this capability, we can shut it off, right from the computer, and we know it's shut off. There's no if, ands, or.
No, and I appreciate that. So are there any other questions? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
And those opposed? And this motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here and patient. Mr. Clerk?
Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager. I will move to approve the purchase of additional cabling and installation fire station infrastructure cabling project with the contract of Boxborough MA in an amount not to exceed $150,000. Funding will be through Department 152 Fire Rescue Fund bond funds, Municipal Fire Alarm Upgrade 81700, infrastructure improvements, infrastructure upgrades 81700, infrastructure improvements 148,496.24.
And Chief Buxton is here to speak on this. And if you'd like, you could please have a seat.
Good evening, Steve Buxton, Nashville Fire. This is Jeremy Audet. He's our fire alarm superintendent, and that's Deputy Chief Robert Barrows. We have a few items coming up the pipe here, so I will defer to Superintendent Audet on this project as it's one that's been assigned to him.
Thank you.
In regards to the fire alarm municipal product, we are allocating the remaining funds from the bond consolidation. And then the ARPA funds have become available to allow us to complete all phases of the project. And that includes the installation in all phases done by contract, who has already done work on the city for the school department at the Franklin Street School.
Okay. Are there any questions on this? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed? None. Motion carries. Mr. Clerk?
Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager. I will move to approve the purchase of a Ford F-250 crew cab with associated upfitting costs through Londonderry Ford of Londonderry, New Hampshire. And the upfit of the vehicle will be through Global Public Safety of Hudson, New Hampshire, in an amount not to exceed $73,300. Funding will be through Department 152 Fire Rescue, Fund 81500, Vehicle/Serve.
Chief Buxton.
Thank you, Steve Buxton, Nashville Fire. So I'll defer to Deputy Chief Barrows here in a second, but I'd like to point out to the group that vehicles in the fire service in municipalities right now are very, very challenging to come by. And he was very diligent and able to find these two vehicles. I hate to use the words that we got lucky, but sometimes it's better to be lucky. So I'll defer to Deputy Chief Barrows on this.
Good evening, Bob Barrows, Nashville Fire. So this is a surf purchase scheduled for this year. Again, it's a 2022 Ford F-250 Super Cab. It's going to be replacing a 2013 vehicle to be used by the Training Safety Division. So, happy to answer any questions that anybody might
Are
have.
there any questions? I did see that it refers to there being a 10% increase from what we had originally thought on the surf, which is what we're expecting on everything that's coming through because of these costs. Is that
So
accurate?
unfortunately, as they were speaking earlier, I mean, Ford's already predicting that not only are they going to be increasing their, cost to municipalities, but the purchasing, which we go through, which is the Boston purchasing, they're saying that they're going to knock that, like, Ford's just not going to, the dealership's just not going to, there's no money in it for them anymore because they don't have these extra vehicles, so.
I appreciate that. And how long does it take to get a vehicle like this?
So luckily with these two, these two that we're here for tonight, they're already at Londonderry Ford. I found that we just kind of lucked out and found it, as the chief said. The last vehicle that we got approval on, a pickup truck, it took us 11 months to get.
I remember that.
Yeah,
So.
and we still don't have that one, so.
11 months and counting?
Yes.
Thank
Well,
you
it's
very
being built, we know that, so.
Well, thank you very much. And so are there any other questions before I'm sorry, Alderman Clemens.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, that's not the best way. It's certainly not time efficient, but sometimes that you do, when you search like that, you find certain things and, it's actually, I think, going way back in the day, that's how we found MHQ down in Worcester. So, and we have a pretty good relationship with them. And so you never know, you may come out and find a good relationship, maybe with Londonderry Ford, maybe, whatever, and then become your go-tos. And, so it's not necessarily all lost. There's some hope.
Yeah.
So.
Good point, Alderman Clemens. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And those opposed? And that motion carries. Mr. Clerk?
Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager. I will move to approve the purchase of a Ford F-250 Super Crew Cab with associated upfitting costs through Londonderry Ford of Londonderry, New Hampshire. And the upfit of the vehicle will be through Global Public Safety of Hudson, New Hampshire, in an amount not to exceed $53,000. Funding will be through Department 152 Fire Rescue, Fund 81500, Vehicle/Serve.
Chief Buxton?
Again, I'll defer to Deputy Chief Barrows. This is one of his projects.
Okay, so again, this is pretty much falls right in line with the last one. Again, through Londonderry Ford. We just kind of lucked out and found them there. This one is going to be assigned to the Fire and Alarm Division, and it is also a F-250 2022.
And is this replacing a vehicle?
Also, yeah,
The
also
2019?
2013.
Oh, 2013.
And again, it is on the surf schedule, so.
Are there any questions? Again, I know this is a 10%, which we're seeing all over, and to Alderman Clemens, good find with Londonderry. Maybe we can have a great relationship with them.
That's what we hope for.
So, Seeing no questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
And those opposed? And seeing none, motion carries. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you. Next, communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager. I will move to approve the purchase of a replacement self-contained breathing apparatus compressor and cascade system housing at the Connaught Road Fire Station through Fire Tech and Safety of Tingsboro, Massachusetts, in an amount not to exceed $93,703.50. Funding will be through Department 152 Fire Rescue, Fund 81300, Machinery and Equipment /Surf.
Chief Buxton?
Steve Buxton, National Fire. So this is going to be replacing the 2004 compressor of similar sorts that is currently stationed at the Connaught Road Fire Station. That unit is now 18 years old, and the investment that we have to put into it to maintain it is starting to outweigh the benefit. So it is in the SURF schedule and has been budgeted for.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Again, I didn't see that this had an increase in the price, but I'm sure that we'll be seeing more of them. And so, seeing no questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
And those opposed? That motion carries. Thank you so much. Yes, Mr.
Next
Clerk, I'm
communication
sorry.
from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager. I will motion to approve the purchase and installation of the fire station alerting system and associated equipment through Purvis Systems of Middleton, Rhode Island, in an amount not to exceed $700,000. Funding will be through Department 152 Fire Rescue, Fund 81300, Machinery and Equipment /ARPA funding.
Chief Buxton again.
Steve Buxton, National Fire. So Jeremy Audette will speak to this in a moment, but I just wanted to point out to you real quick that the implementation of this program, when we adopted the master plan, this is one of the things that was identified in there that we need to it was given a highest priority ranking in the recommendation section. So this is the start of that project, and Jeremy can speak to the details of it for you.
Thank you.
Jeremy Audette with Nashville Fire Rescue. The Purvis project's taken us quite a bit of time to get together in order to get the pricing and all that fine-tuned and as close as we could get it. We've had the vendor do several walkthroughs with us in each of the stations. Obviously, having some buildings well over 100 years old has some obstacles that we wanted to make sure that any vendor that was going to do this work was aware of, and so we're not coming back with change orders. So we've done a lot of work on that regards. And the ancillary software that has to go alongside with it will be part of that $700,000 in the contingency.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, and I always say never with change orders. We don't know what we don't know, but are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed? Seeing none, this motion carries. Thank you so much, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Mr. Clerk?
Yep, so the next communication is from Jim Donchis, Mayor, about an emergency PO request replacement of the north generator day tank. I will move to accept the communication and place it on file.
Without objection, I'll accept the communication. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, unfinished business?
There is none.
Table to committee?
There is none.
New business resolutions?
There is none.
New business ordinances?
There is none.
Record of expenditures?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will move that the Finance Committee has compiled with the city charter and ordinances pertaining to the record of expenditures for the period from November 11th, 2022 to December 1, 2022.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and there being none. And that motion carries. General discussion? Public comment? I don't see anybody in the gallery, so I'll assume no. Remarks by the alderman? None? Usually this is my part, but I will ask for the clerk to make a motion at this point.
I move to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And this meeting ends at 7:39. Even with all my comments.